Hey, welcome to Leadership Within, the moment for leaders to reflect on their human experience of leadership. I'm your host, TK, and I'm joined by
Vanessa.
Hey, Vanessa, lovely to have you again, and it's lovely that we have another wonderful chat. What's the energy you're bringing in today?
I was just going to say thank you for having me. So I think it's probably a grateful energy today.
Yes, which is a great one. I'm hoping that when our listeners listen to our podcast, they have a energy of contemplation, thoughtfulness, and exploration. Because as always, I hope that our podcast is something that helps you reflect on various situations that you have as leaders or aspiring leaders or people that are interested in this line of thought. So today, the topic I'm bringing in is an interesting one because throughout my career, and I've been doing some research, reading other papers around it too, especially after the pandemic, as things, shifted, our world of work became a bit more different for a great many people. But even before, I've seen leaders having clear problems and complaining a lot about the engagement of their teams and their organizations. How is it that it just feels like people aren't as engaged as they used to be, or maybe, what the leaders expected. And what I found is that there's one thing that is clearly missing from a lot of organizations and the work of quite a few leaders, which is helping teams and even individuals understand what's the clear purpose and or mission of a team and why such a thing really can lift cohesion and motivation and thus engagement in a team. So the topic I'm bringing today is, why do we believe that team purpose or making the purpose clear and readily available for the team can really lift its cohesion and motivation? My experience is that it really helps, but I'm wondering about yours, Vanessa.
Yeah, I think it helps lift, because I think any kind of vision takes you out of where you are and moves you towards something. So I think it helps galvanize energy and helps you kind of. I'm thinking of geese fleeing and flying in formation. It's like, okay, we're going here, and I think that's always a motivational kind of inspiring energy, isn't it?
It is, but I'm trying to dig in and, maybe to your personal experience, and I can share mine. I remember this, well, it's not my experience necessarily, but anytime I've been in a team and leading a team too, or helping the teams set up, what I've seen is a huge boost and lift that openly talking about what is the mission or the purpose that they're here for, because it allows people to understand that they're a part of something bigger. They're part of something that can be achieved. I remember that a few years ago, I've helped set up a few teams down in South Africa for an organization here in the UK. And what happened is, instead of them being just what we call in the industry of digital product and service delivery, feature factories, so just, getting stuff to build and building that, they had a mission of developing some new frameworks that can help grow the business and reach new markets. They really took it upon themselves. And plus, obviously, the purpose of them being the foothold to the new location that is supposed to be, something bigger for the organization, the South African technical department there. So I've seen how it galvanized them, how it gave them a purpose. Because to be honest, especially when a team is new or has been through stuff, having something to coalesce around is extremely important. It's really detrimental if there isn't one. So that's the story I have. I remember there's also this famous anecdote, which I don't know if it's true, but it's like President Kennedy back in the day walking around NASA and meeting a janitor. And I was asking him, "Oh, what's your job?" And he said, "I'm sending a man on the moon." So that's a big mission from anyone that definitely helped him with the quality and engagement in his simple, you would say, but still important work.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking about probably contrary examples to
All
it.
right, go ahead. Yes, I'd love that. That's a good discussion always,
Yeah.
right?
Well, because I'm thinking a lot of the organizations I've worked in have been pretty bureaucratic.
Mm-hmm.
And so their sense of galvanizing a team was to kind of say, here's the organizational mission and vision, and here's the metrics that we want to deliver on, and here's why they're important. And in, and that kind of got cascaded down. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't ever think that was particularly engaging, because it kind of missed the piece of joining up the dots and saying, so how does your why fit with this why, fit with these outcomes? I think too little time was spent on, kind of helping people align to
Mm-hmm.
the why of what we're trying to deliver. So it's funny, isn't it? Because I'm sitting here racking my brains thinking, okay, what's an experience of where I've been in a great team and we've all got behind a vision and we've, and actually I would say often it's been in moments of a little bit of chaos, or,
Mm-hmm.
like there's an urgency, some kind of thing that like we've got to deliver on this, and it's got to, so there's like a time pressure, and there's a, um, you know, there's an overarching, if we don't do this, then this.
Yes, a moment of crisis, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's then lifted people up to go, oh, okay, it's more than just me. It's a we thing. But I think too often, um, you know, the actual, why is this team here? Are they a team? Are we aligning around this thing? Is like little attention is actually done to that. It's just assumed.
Absolutely. Even though you yourself can say it's a great motivator, it's something that's incredibly hard. Which brings me to my second point, which is why is it so hard? And it's not hard to say this, but somehow little attention, as you say, is being given to it. So there must be something in organizations that holds them back from openly using this. I'm not saying using nefariously, but taking this to heart, really thinking about the purpose, talking about this. Why is
Mm.
it so hard? Because there's obviously has to be a reason why it's so. What do you think?
So this might sound a bit harsh, but I think leaders probably underestimate the value of it and the need for it,
Mm,
and therefore it kind of sits in the, oh, it's one of those things that I should do, but there's a day job that I need to do more of. And I think leaders not really stepping into their leadership fully and understanding that, because so the metaphor that's in my head, or the
mm-hmm.
analogy that's in my head is about going to the gym. So like often in the mornings, like I can wake up and I'm like, oh, like I'm a bit tired or whatever. And I put on motivation, I think it's Motivation University or whatever, where I listen to like wisdom from other entrepreneurs, other people that have really, kind of gone the distance and achieved great things. And consistently you get messaging around, expect it to be painful, expect it to suck, like, it's hard. And I think we live in a world where we want quick fixes and outcomes, and we don't necessarily recognize that a lot of it is grunt and graft and discipline and consistency. And so if I as a leader do not speak to any of that, and I just, and I don't energize around that, and I don't galvanize around that, then people can just lose themselves in just the grind. And I think leaders should and need to pay attention to, how am I motivated? How am I inspiring? How am I lifting energy? How am I directing energy? Where is my energy going? And where actually would it have most impact and have a ripple effect on the people around me?
It's an interesting one, and it's. I'm wondering if it's a modern thing, and I've seen so many organizations falling into that. And I think you've captured the essence of the fact that, well, there's so many other fires to put out, so many other priorities to
Yeah.
focus on, that this just seems like a fluffy thing. Yet, when you for instance think about, well, let's maybe go to military and think about mission driven statements and mission driven objectives that they have, right? Everything is preparing for a mission, then executing on a mission, right? Although it might not be everyone's life, like putting the man on the moon. But on the other hand, throughout ages, it has been established that having such a mission, I remember, I can't quote it exactly because I can't remember which exact companies were there, but there was two Japanese motorcycle companies. I think it was Toyota and Suzuki, but I have no idea which one was which or which one was it exactly. But essentially, one of these companies had a huge hold on the motorcycle market in Japan and I think mostly in Asia. And the other company was up and coming, and they've actually managed to overtake the established player. Because they became, I guess, complacent. The other company had better models and so on. So the original big player, when they've noticed this and they had their big strategy yearly plan, the CEO of that company, I wish I had names, and I'll probably put them in the in the podcast notes, the exact story, so you can read it without that, said that this year's mission is to, and I don't know Japanese, but kick the other player and get back to the first spot. And they did it within half a year of really concentrating on it. Now, very simple, not vague statement like putting a man on the moon or beating your competitor and getting to the first place is something that can definitely help. But why I believe it's so hard to achieve that is our natural human tendency to regress to the mean. You see, as people, I think we can get used to anything and it just becomes a part of the grind. Now, the purpose isn't important. We just expect the grind. So day after day, week after week, year after year, we possibly, and that's what I observe, become, sadly, in organizations, quite often these mindless drones that just expect the grind as what it is and try to have our mission somewhere else in life, with our families, hobbies, other achievements, because that work is just work. And it's so hard to see and difficult to appreciate the fact that with that attitude, we're putting so much of our lives, our working lives, in these miserable situations. Really sad. I don't know if possibly it is a reason why you quoted your stories, and I believe it's just like people thinking, it's just the grind, isn't it? But there can be so much more.
Yeah, well, so you're making me think. I just came off the back of a call with somebody who said to me, so it was an hour conversation, really about their career and where they were and what they were wanting and what their dreams were. And they said to me, in the 9 years that I've worked in this company, no one has had a conversation like this with me. And I'm like, well, what's the impact of that? Like, what are you noticing? And it's like, I feel really seen. I feel really motivated, and I understand what my next step is. And I just think, what are we doing if we're not having these conversations in organizations? Like, what are we talking about? We're talking about the work, aren't we? We're talking about
just the factory, right? Just next day and next grind.
It's like, but we're not talking about the human and who the human is in that, and what they want, and what's frustrating them, and it's like, what? Why? Like, seriously.
Well, and you know what? I've been asking myself the same question and coming up with answers is because I think we, after a while, get conditioned to the fact that it might not matter, the fact that no one really believes in it, right? I guess, this motorcycle company or NASA have believed in their mission and managed to achieve it. But sadly, because of the fact that, PR and internal communication became so meek and it's just even difficult to look at. My wife works in HR and, I think yesterday I've looked at her laptop screen with these, people are our biggest assets and so on. I was like, oh my Lord, what does it mean? Why is it there anymore? I think it's just meaningless at this point, right? It's just a statement that we're making because we're just so used to it. And in my mind, every organization, sadly, devolves to the mean. And what happens is we settle down, but also I think leaders just feel that it's pointless and meaningless, and they, instead of trying to achieve, instead of focusing on a purpose, They focus on immediate priorities and just getting it done, just getting it over with, right?
Yeah.
Unless there's a crisis,
Yeah.
unless there's a fire to put out, then everyone discovers that, something can go on. There's a method of managing and leading with crisis, with constant crisis. I don't necessarily believe it's that helpful because as humans, we can only master and basically get this attention and ability to perform not constantly, but there has to be something that galvanizes us. So, in my mind, 2 points. We just got used to these PR statements, and well, we might not be able to believe in it, and our leaders believe in it even less because they see even more.
Yeah, I think that's where my mind's going to. So I'm trying to stay out of judgment, which is quite tricky in this conversation. And my curiosity is around how engaged are leaders right now. Like if we were really looking at where's the significant leader or significant lever in, how to really engage a workforce, I suppose I'm most curious about what does the engagement factor look like for your leaders? Are they truly engaged? Are they really motivated? Are they going to work feeling like, yay, this is possible? Or are they actually engaged in quite destructive or, divisive behaviors? Like where is the energy of your leaders? And, because that's where the potential, I think, for moving this sits, because as much as we can go to individuals, it's on you, mate. You need to be engaged. You need to find your why. You need to sign. I kind of also think who has a really big impact on your experience at work? Your leader, your leadership. So it's kind of like, I kind of feel like I've always felt this with any kind of leadership development work. It's like, okay, you can do bottom up, you can do top down, but actually you kind of need the holistic approach to leadership development where you include everybody. But for me, in this conversation, the piece that I am most curious about is what's going on in leadership right now. Like, how engaged are leaders and how motivated are they? How burnt out are they? One of the things that I've been hearing recently in conversations with executives is how impatient leaders are, because they're knowing they have to drive change, particularly technical change. They need to cut costs. They need to, they need to survive and thrive. And, they're becoming increasingly impatient with the human beings that are trying to deliver, and their expectation on how present you should be, as in how much work time you should be at work, is increasing. So it's like, okay, that's really helpful, isn't it? I sound really cynical.
No. I'm not saying I'm definitely not approaching it from the stance of judgment. Neither I think you are. I think let's acknowledge the difficult pressures that we ourselves and other leaders are in and under. I think the human condition is such that the return and regression to the mean is just a natural phenomenon. We are not robots and large language models. We are human in every position we are in, and we have our boundaries and abilities and our own energy to be able to progress with it. And I think it's just a difficult condition to be a leader, to be able to find within yourself the energy of authenticity, to be able to inspire with such a way, right? To be able to say that difficult purpose, maybe find it for yourself, care for the people to understand that it's there for them, but also ask and be open about asking for the purpose for themselves, right? And this is something that many organizations just don't have, because people, unfortunately, in whichever part of the organization, I don't think necessarily leaders, are sadly more and more focused on themselves and less on the small or bigger collective that they're a part of. And I think the team cohesion, the third entity of a group we are in, can really enhance the way we work, the way we deliver, and the way we derive purpose from our work, which will obviously enable us to achieve, right? I'm not talking about 80-hour weeks or whatever, because we're all human. We all have our families and other, not inexhaustible amounts of energy. But the important thing is to think about the people around you. So with that, maybe let's go to the final point in our wonderful episode for our beautiful listeners. What do we believe leaders can actually do in practical ways to articulate the purpose or mission of a team, or maybe get a purpose of a mission for themselves? What have you found, Vanessa, or seen that helps?
So I really like it when it becomes creative. And I think the thing that I often really helps is having a metaphor, a
Mm,
shared metaphor. Like if we would do an exercise in ORSC around bringing down the vision,
yes.
where everybody would, draw what they envision, and then you would together create a shared vision that is not necessarily words and metrics, but I think doing anything creative can really help, because it just, you know, we see, don't we, in pictures. And I
Mm,
think, like, I know if I wake up and there's something inspirational on my board that I can see, like a vision board, I can picture what I want to move towards. And I feel like if we get creative, we can have some fun doing it too. Like, it really helps to then have people be part of that, galvanize, put their energy towards it. Remember, you're going to forget, why are we here, why are
mm.
we doing this stuff, and I think just having something to anchor to is really important.
It's a great one, right? But also, I think creating space to do that has to be a bit more creative. And I don't necessarily only mean creative and fun in the way you've described it, but creative in a way that doesn't become stale. What do I mean by that? At first, it's just okay to talk about if you have a purpose, if you have a mission, about what it is. But to really live it, there needs to be something more. And I don't believe that, KPIs, OKRs, only showing the results on paper will matter, because what you will get is the famous watermelon effect, and people will just, I'm not saying game it, but definitely start, putting emphasis on the numbers instead of what really matters. I think creating a space or for really even sometimes short conversations, even conversations that are tagged on to other meetings and maybe take like 10, 15 minutes to leave the space for instance, as you say, drawing the metaphor, or maybe talking about how do I see myself in this mission? How do I see myself in this purpose? What's my role? How do I fit in? Or maybe talking about what's your frustration in there, right? What is it that you feel holds you back? Or on what are you proud of? Um, I think the job of a person that's helping the team, that's calling themselves a leader in this case, is to be creative with such techniques, to show themselves openly with, in what I believe is a very authentic stance, but also have something that isn't formulaic, because people will get used to it. And I mean it in a way that in the grind we have every day to reach the mission, what I think is important is constantly trying to switch the channels. I don't mean interpretive dance, unless your organization is up for it. It can be quite a channel switch. But what I do mean is putting an effort to show that you really care to embed this mission, vision, or strategy, or whatever you call the purpose, in a way that's practical and being lived. It requires
Mm.
effort. It requires you as a leader to think about methods. There's plenty of great tools, and you can do it in a very, and at first it will be awkward. My story is, I remember at one point after we've been delivering on a purpose. There was actually a technical deliverable to do, a difficult one. I remember after like 2 weeks, I've asked the people working on it, came to the room, and I said, "Hey, can we have a quick meeting to reflect on the last 2 weeks? What are you proud of?" I've had a very strange reaction from these people. It was like, I think 15 years ago, and already like, what is it, a kindergarten or something? But I stood by it. I said, well, I think it's important to think about the technology because you've done some great work. So let's like reflect on it. And you know what? On the second week, they have actually really enjoyed it. At first, it can be a huge surprise. It might feel like, what the hell, right? They're supposed to do what I'm telling them to. That's how leadership works, doesn't it? But no, I think the short burst of like channel switching, thinking about or reflecting can be a huge motivator and a huge thing in team cohesion. After like 15 years, I've been regularly meeting with these wonderful people. I've met with them last year for a poker game, and yeah, still remember it quite fondly. What about you, Vanessa? Do you have a positive story when you've seen a leader doing it correctly, even if it's not with you, but maybe a story about someone else?
Yeah, I think. I think certainly in. I was just thinking, probably I've seen a leader do it really well, where she values individual differences,
Mm.
but also collective achievement. So it's like, I see you all as individuals and I see your brilliance, and wow, look at what you've done together. I think that reflection back is really important. So it's not just a individual one, it's a collective one. And marrying those two together, I think, is really important. Because it stops the ego from kind of going, it's all about me. See, look at me. and actually recognizes how the me fits into the we, and how actually the outcome is greater together. I think that's when I've seen it done best. And I was thinking, probably, if I was to name people, Bieber out of Global Warriors has done that really well, or does that really well.
Amazing that you can be a part of this environment. It's an interesting thing about the ego and how, sometimes there needs to be space for it. But maybe that's a topic for another episode of Leading Within. So I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. And as always, we do hope we'll be able to see you, or, you'll be able to hear us in the next week for the next episode of our podcast. Take care and see you soon.